Yeah, I just stumbled across this one, didn't read it yet. Fizz.org 7,000-year-old grains hints at origin of Swiss pile dwellings. This look like coffee beans. Remains of crops from the Neolithic period, like naked barley and naked wheat, indicate connections between geographically distant settlements. No place have researchers found more Neolithic pile dwellings than around the Alps. Pile dwellings, this is how they look. Just in case. Down here are the piles. So now let's continue. It's a mystery, however, how this building boom came to be. Researchers at the University of Basel have now uncovered new clues and say that settlers at Lake Varese in northern Italy may have played a leading role. When workers discovered the first pile-dwelling settlement on Lake Zurich in the mid-19th century, a whole new area of archaeological research was born. Since then, 111 pile-dwelling villages in the Alpine region have been made UNESCO World Heritage Sites, but it has so far been unclear where this unique construction method came from. Experts assumed until a few years ago that it was a local phenomenon. Researchers led by Professor Ferrand Antolin from the subject area of integrative prehistory and archaeological science at the University of Basel, however, have found new clues as how to pile-dwelling culture came to the areas north of the Alps. Prehistoric plant remains from settlement from Lake Varese in northern Italy show the same composition as the crops from the oldest Swiss pile-dwelling settlements in Zurich in Eccleswil, Canton Lucerne. The researchers have reported their findings in the Journal of Archaeological Science Reports. Durum wheat, barley, opium, poppy, and flax. The team took sediment cores around the prehistoric settlement on Isolino, Virginia, and determined the age of the crops and the deposits using radiocarbon dating. According to the results, the artificial island appears to have been inhabited as early as 4,950 to 4,700 BCE. The oldest known pile-dwelling settlement in Switzerland dates back to around 4,300 BC, hence 6,000 years. Half cycle. Comparisons with Ibn's reference collection enabled the archaeological botanists to identify the composition of the approximately 7,000-year-old plant material from this earliest phase of occupation of Isolina, Virginia. Durum wheat, barley, opium, poppy, and flax, the same plant species as those cultivated in the inhabitants of the oldest Swiss pile-dwelling settlements. These plant species are atypical of the northeastern Italian population of the time, however, whose agriculture was focused on the cultivation of hulled wheat such as emmer. The crops found at Lake Varese tended to be cultivated in the western Mediterranean region. The research team concluded on this basis that the settlement of Isolino di Varese might well have been established by groups that came from the western Mediterranean or were closely linked to it through trade. These groups probably played a key role in the spread of the pile-dwelling phenomenon north of the Alps, says Antolin, an archaeobotanist. The period between 4700 BCE, when the settlement in Isolina de Varese was temporarily abandoned, and 4300 BCE, when the first pile-dwelling villages north of the Alps were established, continues to raise various questions. The researchers suspect that other archaeological evidence, such as further settlements, may still remain undiscovered or could have been lost. In addition, current research shows that there is plenty of evidence of prehistoric pile dwellings in other areas of Europe, such as the Central Balkans. Here too, the team from the University of Basel is involved in the research of Neolithic pile dwellings. These sites have a different agricultural tradition, however, making a direct connection to the pile dwellings of Switzerland unlikely. The origin of pile dwellings remains a complex phenomena that is almost impossible to clarify based on the remains of the buildings themselves, says Antolin. Analysis of the crop remains can make an important contribution here, though. Okay, back to those pile houses I have been. There is one in Lake Bodensee. It's probably the biggest one in Switzerland. Now let's see if I can find it. I don't really remember where it is exactly. Somewhere at this lake. Okay. Believe me. Actually, we could probably search just in case. Uh, there are many. Yeah. I was quite close. Pile Dwelling Museum. As far as I understood, that's not a sea or an ocean or an Atlantic or whatever water body which would have tidal activity. And since ever I have been there, like we have been there with the school, they were showing us all kinds of things. I have been wondering that why? There's no alligators or stuff there. Probably once has been there, but not at the time those people have been there. So now, let me explain what I was thinking when I stumbled across this news just before. I wasn't intending to do any video, but sometimes it's just funny. Brick. I made some videos about that big flood which happened in Brick in '93, I guess. And where is it? We have to follow some river up here somewhere. Bortelhorn, Bortelsee. If you watch at that, the pattern it has, there's a center and it goes out like that. And it has these kind of layers around, which probably means the water is coming from below, which also could probably be the reason for the floods we had in Brieg in '93, which also could mean this is not just a lake, it could be probably some kind of geysir, which means it would be volcanic, in nature. We have their geothermal activity in the valley. Then not far from there, we have even a village with the name Bath in it. So there is geothermal activity all the way, everywhere. And since this lake is lower than the permafrost, or how you put it, where it's frozen all year long, it melted. It's not a glacier anymore. These wells are high enough that they are still frozen all the time. And if we have fluctuations in the energy circuit of Earth, which keeps all the spheres in place, magnetosphere, and our like all the layers of our atmosphere, which are different kinds of layers, troposphere and what have you. And those layers continue. The layering continues inside the Earth. It's not just above us. It's not just our atmosphere, it continues inside. There is this layer where we have magma. There will be a layer where we have the water. So the overall charge which flows through our planet keeps those layers in place and also uh, keeps them at the size they are now at. Like if we would get much more energy, our magnetosphere would probably expand, which also probably could mean that the water inside Earth would expand too, because it's a sphere as well. So it would expand. What would it mean? It would come out of the ground. The valleys would get flooded and blow places, and like those plains where everybody's growing their food and stuff, everything would just drown in water because the water is just rising everywhere. Then we have all those electromagnetic currents in the ground. Water is a really good conductor. We have salt deposits really far away from oceans and stuff. The Alps, there is like all the places are full with mineral water. And then if you think about different kinds of lava, we have really sticky lava. Is it Semeru or Merapi? Where it's coming out? Fuego is also one of those. Like it's this kind of dry stuff in a way. And then we have Hawaii, which is really liquid, or Greenland is also really liquid. Then, for example, Yellowstone, there we have many, many, many geysers. And there's much rhyolithic lava. We have rhyolithic lava in Europe. We have cryptodomes, at least one in Europe, the Thunder Mountain. The best known cryptodome is Mount St. Helens, which seems to be waking up as well. And it happened to be that inside Mount Helens is the world's fastest growing glacier. The Alps are full with glaciers. So why or how all those glaciers shouldn't or couldn't be volcanoes after all? They just probably work a bit different. There's just probably so much water just pouring out of those before there's any like this kind of liquid stone, which would be expectably be this kind of rhyolithic silica rich lava, which contains really or almost none metal, because metal doesn't like water. And other volcanoes where we have just lava, like everyday lava, the red stuff, there is no water inside because it's full of metals. And this is just the counterpart to the metal-rich lava, rhyolitic lava. And if you alter it with a really big amount of electricity, burn it, you get granite out of it. Ta-da! That's why the people built those villages on piles, because they knew there's water coming from the mountains. Every now and then, a huge amount, because one of those geysers will spill out all of the water, the valley gets flooded, and all this kind of stuff. Later on, it got colder, they start to freeze over, and nothing, no panic anymore. We can just build all our villages in the valley because there's just a little bit of water coming. The rest of it is just frozen over. But just wait until it warms up or there's some change in the geothermal activity. Warm water starts to rise up and the glaciers just melt really rapidly. And it could also be that view of those lakes, if it's raining really much, like if you have this kind of hand pump, you have to first pump really much before there's anything happening, before the water is coming, or they just pour water inside first. Like you'll fill the pump up with water and then you start to pump and bam, there's water coming. Probably a similar thing could also be with those lakes up there in the mountains. If it's just raining enough, the similar kind of effect will just start to pump the water out of this lake because it is connected to the groundwater and the geothermal activity, which is volcanic in nature. But I leave it here. Thanks. Bye.